It's been a rough day, as you can see. Or maybe you can't, I don't know. But we are still gonna do the Bible study, because it's an everyday thing. Anyway, chapter 8, Trust in Me. I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge, my fortress, my God. In Him I will trust. Psalms 91:2. Okay, and then I'm going to read this. Connie Stevens' 27-year-old son, Jonathan, was a physically fit, healthy young man, just out of the Marine Corps. Connie was relieved that her son would no longer face physical danger, but she was worried about him spiritually. Despite growing in a faithful Christian home, he turned his back on God at the age of 16, saying he no longer even believes God exists. Connie's heart was broken for her son. She prayed desperate prayers, begging God to send her the miracle of seeing Jonathan return to God. She prayed for 11 long years without anything happening. As she said, discouragement sneaked through the cracks from time to time, but the Holy Spirit caulked up those breaches and urged me to keep praying. But in April of 2005, the world caved in for the Stevens family when Jonathan was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer that had already metastasized to his brain. As she became her son's caregiver, Connie tripled her prayers for her precious son. She says, I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to read through the book of Job during this time. Oh wow. But I did, until I got to that well-known verse in Job 13:15. Though he slay me, yet I will trust in him. She continues, I couldn't get past that verse. I cried. I railed at God and told him, I don't understand any of this. Why have you allowed this? Show me the purpose of this cancer. If I could only understand what you're doing, then maybe I could remember how to breathe. God let her rant, and when she was finished, he whispered to her heart, Child, I didn't ask you to understand, I asked you to trust. She reread that verse from Job out loud to God, adding one personal clause. Though you slay me, or even if you take my son, yet will I trust you. That trust made it easier for her with every aspect of Jonathan's journey through cancer. As she says, it made it easier to simply lean into my Lord and let him carry me. What Connie had thought was an attack from the enemy was actually God at work, not only in her heart, but also in Jonathan's life. 2 weeks later, on May 15, 2005, Jonathan and a friend went to church, and Connie got her miracle. God answered her prayers of 11 years when Jonathan came home to God. Connie shares, I fell to my knees and worshiped to God who is faithful, who hears our prayers and cries, the God who directs us to persevere, who calls us to stay close to him and remain faithful, who whispers in the storm, trust me, child. Cancer had still turned our world upside down, but the path it took wasn't up to me. Jonathan had good days, bad days, and some horrible, terrifying days that were days where I felt I was drowning. But when I was helpless, God reminded me of who he is. Remind me of his wisdom, strength, power, and faithfulness. Jonathan graduated to heaven on January 10, 2006. He is now home with Jesus, safe, whole, and healed. Friend, you are walking down a path similar to the one Connie traveled? Trust God. He is faithful to her. and He will be to you as well. Lord, I know that your plans are often too big and complex for me to understand. Help me to trust you even when I don't know what you're doing. So many painful situations have come into my life through the years. Sometimes it's hard to see through the pain, through my broken heart, and remember that you're still in charge. But I know you hear my cries. I know you hear my prayers. Help me to trust when I feel helpless. Help me to remember, sorry, this is really getting me. Help me to remember that, when I feel helpless. Help me to remember that you are not. When my strength is gone, help me to lean on you. You are my everything, God. Amen. So it's 1, have you ever prayed for many years for something? What did you learn from that experience? And then question 2, how can difficult times in your life sometimes be God's plan for answers to your prayers? And then question 3, how can seeing how God was faithful to someone else impact your faith during hard times? All right, so we're gonna go through it together because that's what helps me. And I feel like it's more connected because I feel like sometimes when people read Bible studies, like if I watch videos and people are reading a Bible study, they just kind of have clips of them reading it and answering the questions like on their own, and they do like a brief topic about what it was about, but they don't. And I get like a lot of people, maybe they're not comfortable reading their answers aloud, but I feel like it's something that I want to see because it just feels more real, it feels more like you're connecting with somebody, and that's what it's all about, sharing your testimony. How you're supposed to share your testimony if you're being very vague about it, or you're only sharing the clean version, like you have to be real with that stuff, in my eyes, because I don't know, I think some people are like, oh, if I'm too real about my addiction, or I'm too real about my whatever, then people think that's okay. People think that's okay, but it's not okay. It's about being honest of like, these are my sins. This is what I struggle with. Even as a Christian, I still struggle with this and this and that. I'm not perfect. We all struggle with sin. And should I lean away from it? Yes. Is it a process? Yes. So I feel like a lot of people, like with their testimonies, and I don't know, it's not like a lot of people, but some people that I've encountered, they don't really, I don't know, I want to hear the deeper testimony. Like, if I know that they have a deep testimony of like really like intense stuff, and maybe not all the details, but like intense stuff, I want to hear like what made you change from like this crazy lifestyle to like God, and like having that change, because it's powerful. Because then there's a lot of people like in their life that are doing all that crazy stuff, or like drugs or drinking or whatever, like crazy testimonies, and they're thinking maybe like, oh, I can't do that because like this person's testimony is very like, oh, I whatever it is, and then they moved and then they follow God now. So they're like, oh, well, my testimony has to look just like their testimony. It can't look too crazy because then I get judged, or I can't look, you know what I mean? So I want to have that honesty when I do these Bible studies of like, these are the questions. I want to go through those questions with y'all, and I want to answer them to the best of my ability. I don't want to give like my addresses out or like my social security or anything, like any personal stuff, but to be as personal as I can be, to not like share stuff that other people in my testimony wouldn't feel comfortable with me sharing, out of respect for them, but sharing enough to where people will watch this and be like, huh, I understand that, or I get that, or like, dang, I didn't know other people go through that. Okay, Question: have you ever prayed for many years for something? What did you learn? I have prayed for many years for something. I prayed for my parents. I prayed for my mom and dad because they were going through difficult times when I was a kid, and they ended up separating, which God's plan for everything. My mom follows God now, and my dad follows God now. So it's just a really amazing thing, and like I have two amazing families on each side. So it's just great. So when I was little, I prayed a lot just for my parents to be happy. And as a kid, of course, you're gonna pray that you want your parents to be together. But also as a kid, I understand that it was not healthy for them, you know? And I prayed for them to not be together, like for them either to work it out, because I wanted that, and if they didn't work it out, then that's okay. It was very hard to understand as a child. And I also prayed for my dad, because he struggled with addiction, and that's a very hard thing to struggle with. So I prayed for that, and God works in amazing ways. My dad is free of that by the grace of God, and he goes to church, and we talk about God all the time, which is amazing. And my mom, she met my stepdad, and they go to church, and I have a lot of siblings and like foster siblings, and it's just amazing. God's really moving in both my parents' lives, which is just so crazy. It's an amazing testimony to talk about, and I will get into it maybe a little bit more, maybe in like a YouTube video of like my testimony, and with their permission, their testimony. Maybe I could get a video from them. That would be pretty cool. But I'm seeing how God's moving in that. So, have you ever prayed for many years for something? What did you learn? I prayed for my parents and my family to have a happy family, and I do. I have a very happy family. Two separate families, but very happy. And what did I learn? That God moves in everything. Even though it took years and years and years and years and years for that to happen, I learned a lot, and I see the impact that God had. Even in the moment, it was hard, and I didn't want, as a kid, I didn't want to have a broken family. But God blessed me and my parents. Like, it's just great, and their testimonies are amazing. It's just, yeah, it's really cool. I think it's awesome what God did in our lives. As like, it's just really cool. Anyway, all right, and then question 2. I'm writing it up. How can difficult times in your life sometimes be God's plan for answers to your prayers? Again, what I was saying about my mom and my dad. Like, how can difficult times in your life sometimes be God's plan for answers in your prayers? Yeah. That was a difficult time in my life, especially when I was younger. A lot going on in my brain. And yeah, it was hard. But God used it, and He answered my prayers in a way that I didn't think He would at all. It's just really crazy what God does. Okay, question number 3. How can seeing how God was faithful to someone else impact your faith during hard times? Crazy. I don't know why this is really centered. I just feel like it's very centered around my mom and my dad. Because they have taught me so much, individually and together, I guess. How can seeing how God was faithful to someone else impact your faith during hard times? My mom is very faithful. She has like this crazy faith and just this drive to like, God has it, and she's just always, very intentional with what she does. And my dad too. My dad, he reaches people. He would say darn or something. That one time a lady at the other job he worked at was like, oh, Adam, like you said this, and he was like, no, I didn't, like I said darn. And she was like, yeah. But the fact that they were so shocked, even the people at his construction job, they were very, they would try to like lean him into cussing or whatever it is, but they knew the type of man he was. He's a man of God. So yeah. I'm not saying my parents don't, like, yes, they're very godly people, but they do have their faults. They're still human. Like, my mom still makes mistakes. My dad makes mistakes. My stepdad follows God, and they're very involved in the church, but they still have their flaws. There's somebody in there. They still have their flaws, like any of us do. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess, I don't know why this is a very parents thing. Maybe it's because she was talking about her son, I don't know. It's a very parents-centered Bible study, I guess. And I need to thank them more. Because, yeah, they've done a lot for me. As people who raised me. I guess we could put it that way. The people who raised me. My mother and father. Yeah. And my stepdad too. He's great. And yeah, I don't know. Pretty cool.